Well, well, well. England have entered the chat. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a brilliant Euros until England started playing football. Shock. I said in my predictions video that I thought Serbia could get a point against England. Serbia, I don't think they're bad, but I don't think they're necessarily great. But I do see them managing to pick up a fair few points in this game. I could see them getting a draw against England. Okay, they didn't, but I wasn't that far off. And I do think the best thing that we saw from England today was they got 3 points. Other than that, I don't really think there was too many positives to take away from that game, personally anyway. I think their system was all right. Tactically, there were a few things that happened, but this is going to be a short video, so please stick around, because really not much happened. It was a pretty dull entire match, to be fair. The first 30 minutes, entertaining. The second half was just nothing happened. I mean, there was no energy, there was no anything. And it was due to the system that we saw, and some rotations as well, that I think Southgate did quite nicely, but then as soon as they stopped, the entire game plan just went out the window and Serbia started dominating the ball a bit more. And in fact, that's how Serbia actually ended up having more shots than we did, because we just let them have the ball in the second half. But anyway, I don't think we played too badly. I don't think we played great either. It was not entertaining football, but they got a job done. The tweaks, I think, were made a bit too early, and I also think the systems that we went into weren't necessarily best. For the first half an hour, though, I did think it was really impressive, and that was because of the shape that Southgate had England set up in. And if we go to the tactics, you can see on screen now that Serbia set up in this 5-4-1 shape. They wanted to go for a low block. That's pretty much what you'd expect. Try and have really tight, narrow lines so that it's hard to play through. And to be fair, after the 30th minute, they did it fine. It was just annoying that I think for the first part of the game, they got it a little bit wrong. And it came from this England shape. And England set up in... It started out, obviously, as a 4-2-3-1. But it ended up in transition becoming either a 3-2-5 and at times a 3-1-6. Now, what I really liked were the rotations, as I said. So, in the 3-2-5, it looked something a bit like this. Trent Alexander-Arnold and Rice were the two double pivots. Trippier pushed much higher into the attacking line on the left-hand side. And then Bellingham would sometimes come over to the right-hand side. And occasionally, we'd see Foden do it as well. So, we saw different systems where Bellingham and Foden rotated when it was in this 3-2-5 shape. But what I did then really like is, say we go back to this kind of shape, Trent was pushing really high. For the first maybe 15 minutes or so, he was almost like an attacking midfielder playing as a number 10 behind Harry Kane. And I thought it actually was something that I didn't really expect. I don't think any England fan expected that. It was quite an interesting thing to have seen. It then meant, obviously, that Rice had to play as a single pivot, but it didn't mean that transitionally we didn't drop players deep. And by that, I mean sometimes you'd see Bellingham come deep to try and get on the ball, especially if we're, knocking the ball around the back. He would come deep to try and get himself on the ball. And I quite liked it. I liked the players trying to get on the ball. You always want players that are willing to get it and keep the transition moving. But interestingly, also Foden at times was the man that was dropping into this double pivot as well to try and get on the ball. As I said, try and carry it forward, play a defence-splitting pass, play it out wide to Trippier. And it wasn't too bad. I liked it. I did like it in terms of a progressional sense, but I don't necessarily think the personnel was right. I mean, Foden was doing a fine job of it, but why do you want Foden all the way back in the double pivot role? I didn't really understand that. Actually, I think the 3-1-6 wasn't a bad idea, because I think we knew that Serbia were going to set up in this 5-4-1 formation. They're almost 5 at the back, and we've got 6 attackers. It meant that unless Gudelj dropped deeper into a centre-back role, so they defended in a 6-3-1, for the majority of the match, we had 6 attackers, they only had 5 defenders. So if you look at it, if they go man for man, like it is a little bit here, you've got Bellingham as the free man that can then drift in between the lines. And I thought that was quite interesting. And also we saw rotations on the right-hand side. So when Trent did stay a bit deeper, Saka would drift inside the pitch into more of a half-space role. And Walker would push high. There were a couple of times that we saw him playing as a right winger in this attacking line as well, in almost like a 2-2-6, I guess. Not that that's really what it was, but it was very fluid, and I thought that was quite interesting because it caused a lot of confusion among the Serbia defenders, and it got Saka a lot of opportunities as well to attack that back line. In fact, I think he had the most dribble attempts in the game, and it was through one of these splitting passes. Actually, the ball was with Walker here, and Saka made a brilliant run around the outside, and the ball came in between Pavlovic and Kostic, and then Saka put the crossing. And as I said, Bellingham being the free man in this man-for-man system, it meant when the cross came in, he was the one there to head it in. And I thought Bellingham had a really good game. He was about the best thing that happened with England today. I was really impressed with him. But after the 30th minute, shock, it all changed. And Serbia became a lot more aggressive, just in everything that happened, really. I'm going to drop it back into when we were playing out from the back. So after the 30th minute, when England had goal kicks or when we were playing out from the back, it looked more in this 4-2-4 formation. Serbia went for man, and it really limited the passes that Pickford could make when he had the ball. And I think England were quite happy in doing this because they were trying to bait the press in. So obviously try and bait people like Vlahovic to come further forward. Stones was dropping to try and pull Mitrovic, and it kind of then opens up some space for the likes of Trent to get into and for Pickford to play a pass in like that. But I actually think Serbia were quite disciplined and aggressive in how they were trying to mark the England players when we were playing out from the back. And then when they did get the ball, they almost played in a 4-1-5. Kind of ended up more something like this when they got the ball. And obviously England defended in this 4-2-3-1 shape, like so. And I think that it allowed them to get more players forward, and they've got a much more physical attack than we do defence. So I think that was quite an interesting dynamic that Serbia were trying to exploit, and understandably so as well. Occasionally as well, obviously Gudel was a midfielder, so when he wasn't dropping deep, it became more of a 3-2-5. We see this in so much in club football. Obviously England, as I said, did it in the first part of the match. And actually in the end, England ended up dropping into a 4-5-1 shape, and occasionally it even became a 4-1-4-1. England went really passive, and their lines were really, really narrow. And I actually think this it worked for England because they were obviously able to see the game out, but I think they went too passive too soon, and I think that started to create some problems. And especially when Serbia had the ball, Serbia were happy to play a long ball game. They weren't fussed about playing in between the lines. There was none of these defence splitting passes that we sometimes see. They were happy for it to just go long, and that's because they have Mitrovic, Vlahovic, Milinkovic, Savic, who are all really strong players who the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold are not going to have a chance if they go into an aerial duel. And I think that was a massive factor as to why Serbia were happy to let England have the ball, because if Pickford has the ball and he can't play a short pass and he plays it long, I mean, that Serbia back three were so tall and so physical that if Kane went up for a long ball duel, he wasn't winning it. And if he did win the knockdown, it was unlikely that we had a player high enough to win the knockdown, except for sometimes Bellingham. And it also kind of meant Kane just apparently disappeared. Has anyone seen Kane? I'd like to put out an urgent announcement. Has anyone seen Harry Kane? Because he was not involved in this match whatsoever. I think he had 24 touches. He had the least touches out of the entire England starting squad, despite playing the full 90 minutes. And I think the next lowest was Jordan Pickford, who had double his amount. He did not do anything. He did nothing. I mean, Kane's obviously a brilliant footballer, but he did nothing today. I'm not going to lie. If you look at the average positions of this squad, you can see it's almost Bellingham that's playing as high as he is. And I think Saka or Trent at times were even playing higher than Harry Kane was. And they were really compact. So it meant that when we did win the ball back, the out ball was not to Harry Kane to try and win the aerial duels. It was out wide for the likes of Saka to run onto. Now, having said this, I do think England had some really standout players. I think Declan Rice was phenomenal in being that solo CDM when he had to be. Also in a double pivot, I think he worked really well. He mopped up when England needed him to. He put out a lot of fires that I think we needed. We need him in that squad to kind of sweep up the defensive mistakes. If Gay got beaten, it was always Rice that was there to get the challenge in. And I think we'd suffer if we didn't have that in there. I don't necessarily think Trent was great. I don't think he offered that much in that midfield role. I've always said I'm not a fan of him in the midfield. I'd play him at right back or I wouldn't play him at all. For me, that's just how I see Trent. And I do wish that next game we either see Conor Gallagher or Kobbie Mainoo in this role instead. I thought Gay had a good game as well today, considering it's his first kind of break into the team. I was really impressed with his performance, and I hope he keeps playing in this squad as well. And I thought Trippier on the left-hand side did a really good job as well, considering he's actually a right-back. Gareth Southgate loves using him in the left-back position, and I think he does it quite well. Considering he's a right-footed player, he does a really good job of it, and I was impressed today. But I do think when Luke Shaw comes back, he'll take that spot instead, naturally. I think Luke Shaw offers a bit better balance in the squad, but regardless, I think there were a few standout performances today from England, and obviously Bellingham was the best player on the pitch, pretty much by far. I am concerned about Serbia in this group stage, though. I think they could be a bit of a force to reckon with. I think Slovenia and Denmark could struggle against a very physical Serbia side. They're really tall. They're pretty much playing... If you're playing Serbia, you're playing a team of giants. I think Slovenia will struggle against Serbia. I think Serbia are actually making a case to potentially finish second in this group. So, obviously, they could have got a point today. And also, where's Cole Palmer? Where is he? Why? The man got 33 goals and assists last season. Why did he not come on? What has Jared Bowen done that meant that he came on instead of Cole Palmer? I have no idea, especially in the last half an hour where England were really struggling to create chances. Whether it was for Bellingham, whether it was for Foden, whether it was for Saka. I don't care. I think Eze and Palmer should have got minutes today. Well, yesterday. And the fact that they didn't is a bit criminal. So, Gaza S, as I will now refer to you as, please fix that. Put Palmer on the pitch next game. Please play him against Denmark. We need him. He's so good. Regardless, I think England did all right. Obviously, they got the 3 points, top of the group, yada, yada, yada. I don't think anyone really cares. It wasn't a great performance. So we'll take the 3 points and we'll move on. A lot has to change. I hope we don't go into a 4-5-1 defensive shape ever again. I will rip my eyes out. The 4-2-3-1 was fine. Defensively, it worked. Go into a 4-4-2. Go into a 4-3-2-1. I don't care. Just don't do a 4-5-1 because that was painful. I watched half an hour of football that I will never get back of England playing boring. So boring. It's like watching Everton. It was Sean Dyche football, that. But that is how you win tournaments, I guess. So, and we got the win. But anyway, I think England have their problems. I think they need to fix them. I do think they're still a strong competitor in this competition. A bit like Germany are. And if you want to see how Germany absolutely battered Scotland within 20 minutes on the opening day of the Euros, go and check out my analysis for that here. And until next time, I'll see you very soon. Thanks for watching, and let me know where do you think England are going to get to in this tournament.